closer to Lamar having a deal.
Yeah, he's about to take the practice field today, and they're still not closer to a deal. I'm checking on this morning. The people I'm talking to remain skeptical that something is going to get done. Guaranteed money remains a sticking point. This is set up right now for a 2-year standoff potentially with the franchise tag in play next year.
Let's make sure I'm clear on what you're saying. You're saying that if this doesn't get done in the next 6 days, we are very likely not only looking at this year, but maybe next year as well for Lamar and the Ravens doing this dance.
Yeah, no doubt, because we're looking at Sunday. Lamar Jackson himself has said, I want a deal. If we're going to do it, it needs to be by week 1. Now, that doesn't preclude the Ravens from trying in season. They've done other contracts in the past, but right now, there's not much momentum before Sunday to get this done.
Explain that to us, Mike T. Why is it if you're the team that you want to make sure, it's not just Lamar saying this, but the team also wants this business piece of it done by Sunday? Why?
Greedy, you don't want a distraction, especially you're talking about your franchise quarterback who represents himself. So instead of worrying about cap numbers and cash flow and guarantees, you want him to be worried about your net New York Jets in terms of that's their opening day opponent. So it becomes a massive distraction. Jeremy's right. There is a deadline. It's really in both sides' best interest, Green, to get this deal done, get certainty for the Ravens for the next 5-7 years, whatever it may be, and give Lamar Jackson the guarantee that he richly deserves. And if it doesn't get done, it becomes a distraction and you want to put it to the side.
Mike T, as a person who's been in those rooms where it happens, judging from all the things that we have seen, what is your read of the tea leaves? Do you feel like they are going to get this done before Sunday?
No, because of the graphic we're looking at. Deshaun Watson at $230 million in the same division, who has had very well documented off-field issues, is a massive sticking point when you talk to people around the league, Greeny. Lamar Jackson is saying, I'm a league MVP. I've been impeccable off the field. I'm not taking a nickel less in guaranteed money than $230 million. And according to a lot of people, that's why this deal isn't done. And I don't think it'll get done between now and Sunday.
Well, that's the complicated piece of this. The Deshaun Watson deal in Cleveland is either an outlier or it's a precedent. And I think if I'm Lamar, I'm saying, well, it can be both. It can be an outlier, but it's also a precedent. It's not my fault that they went and did this deal. Either way. Sacho, I want to ask you this from a player's perspective, because we've talked about this as sort of a theoretical possibility. But this is now the reality. He is 6 days away from starting a season, from setting foot on that field and going in harm's way without the contract extension. Are we okay with that?
We're definitely okay with that. And that Deshaun Watson contract has to be the precedent. Every other contract has been the precedent. And so for me, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm telling you what I want. I want this guarantee, and you got to get there, period. I'm willing to play. If you want to put me on a franchise tag later, I'm willing to do that. You want to do it again? I can do that. We saw Kirk Cousins do it. We've seen this happen before. And so I'm totally okay with Lamar Jackson playing this season without a contract. It's up to the Baltimore Ravens to say, hey, we'll give you what you want because we believe in who you are as our leader and as our future of our franchise.
I think he should take the first week off to consider it. I really do. I strongly believe he should take week 1 to just ponder. And again, I want nothing but the best for him. But week 1, I think, is a little soon. I think that the Jet game, they don't need him. I think he needs to just take this time away, go think this thing through, and then come back after week 1. That to me, I think, that's just my unsolicited advice. All right, as we get this thing rolling on this Labor Day edition of Get Up, Jerry says he's rolling the dice. But what's he going to do if it comes up snake eyes early? There's reason to think this could get ugly in Dallas, and I'll explain to you why. Plus, it's Tua time in Miami, but not presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, and we are ready to roll on a day where it is going to move. Fowler's here with news. Heather's here with headlines. Sacho's here with insight. And that's not all. Paul Feinbaum is up early with us this morning. Mike Tannenbaum is up early with us this morning. Let's roll. Coming off of an unbelievable Sunday night college football game, Brian Kelly making his debut, head coach of LSU, taking on Florida State in the Superdome. Picking up third quarter, Sacho. Florida State's up a touchdown. We got a touchdown again, and we got a targeting.
Yeah, look at the grab. One-handed grab for the touchdown, but targeting. Forcible contact to the helmet, he'd be ejected.
Yeah, Ali Gay with a hit. Wilson with a great one-handed catch. You see the hit on the helmet. Florida State in front by a score of 17-3. Fourth quarter, just over 4 minutes left. LSU not going away, down 2 touchdowns, but this is Jeray Jenkins.
Jeray Jenkins, that's his second touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns today, make it a game.
It's a 7-point game, so LSU needs a stop and a score. They get the stop, but hold everything. Malik Neighbors has already muffed 1 punt, Sacho.
2 muffed punts on the night. Florida State looks like they've taken complete control. 2 minutes left. the game looks like it's over.
That's right, because a field goal will ice it. The one thing you can't do is this.
It's fumble the ball, hand it off, take a knee, kick the field goal, do something, anything but fumble.
So they're 99 yards away from a chance at a tie or a win. Tigers down 7, 25 seconds to go. This is why you get Daniels.
This is why Jaden Daniels won the starting spot. Transfer from ASU with his legs. 16 rushes, 114 yards. He's the quarterback.
And he moves the chains later in the drive. 10 seconds to go. 1st and 10 at the 19. It's Daniels. It's Mason Taylor. He's got to get out of bounds.
He's got to get out of bounds. You have no timeouts. Get the first down. Get out of bounds. Does he? Does he? Does he?
He doesn't, as it turns out. Look, the knee is down. Take another look. But with 1 second left, the clock stops on the first down. So 1 second remaining. Florida State used a timeout to set up the defense. It's Daniels. It's Jenkins. It's a touchdown. Tigers love it. Kelly says, are we going for 2 in the win? No, we're not. We're going to kick the extra point to tie it with no time remaining. Here's Florida State Radio with the call.
Snap, spot, blocked! No! It's no good! No! It's blocked! Fire up the war chant and plant the spear! Nose wind! Nose wind!
Can you believe it? It's Shaheem Brown with the block. Devastation for Brian Kelly and LSU.
Look, I'm not here to, say we take any solace in a loss. That's not why I'm here at LSU, to learn about great lessons in losses. But the reality of it is we've got some learning to do. We've got to coach better and we've got to play better.
All right, let's talk about what they need to do better, and I will start with the mouth of the SEC himself, Paul Feinbaum. I'm not even sure I understood what Coach Kelly was talking about there. No one thought he went to LSU to learn lessons. What's your number one takeaway from last night?
LSU paid $10 million for that, Greeny. That was my takeaway at midnight last night, because it makes perfect sense to go for 2. He just went 99 yards. It was a perfect executed drive. And Florida State's defense is, forget on its heels. I mean, they're on their back. And do you want to keep playing when you've played that poorly? No. And you don't want to put it in the hands of the special teams, because you've already had 2 muff punts. You've had a blocked field goal. Of course you go for 2. I think it's the simplest call in the world, but Brian Kelly, being somewhat conservative, he immediately put up the 1. Brian, you're not in the NFL. This is college football. Put the dagger in.
What did you think of it, Heather? Going for the 2 there. I have to admit, I agree with Paul. The way sometimes you have to judge these things based on the way the game is going, and he has all the momentum in the world moving right down the field. What did you think of the decision?
Well, I think whether you go for it or not, the bottom line is nobody at LSU should be surprised by this, Greeny, because anyone who paid attention to Brian Kelly last year, this was deja vu. When he was head coach at Notre Dame, he struggled against Florida State in the season opener the exact same way. Notre Dame was lucky to beat Florida State in overtime last year. And guess what? In similar fashion, he blamed his players at halftime. So can they learn from those mistakes? We'll find out.
Yeah, it did not seem to have been his fault. What did you think of the decision?
Yeah, I'm okay with going for 1. You have the momentum, right? You have the momentum. You kick the extra point. Now, the issue is this. There was a field goal that was blocked earlier. And so if you know you have a porous line when it comes to blocking field goals, that's when the question lies. But still, you have the momentum. You kick the extra point. It's 90% of the time, 95% of the time you're making that. Make the extra point. You have the momentum going into overtime. Obviously, this decision backfired.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe the decision not to go for the 2, if you disagree with it, masks a lot of the other stuff. It didn't look so good last night. It's worth reminding everyone, this is not the championship LSU team from 2 years ago that he's taking over. It's a team with far lower expectations, but that's not a great start for them. Meanwhile, let's go around what was an unbelievable weekend. Heather, we've got headlines. Let's start with Georgia and Alabama. What did you think?
Greeny, I thought that those 2 teams did exactly what they were supposed to do. They dominated lesser competition, and these 2 teams are going to be in the college football playoff. Go ahead and pencil it in. One of the most impressive things was Stetson Bennett. He's the first Georgia player in the last 25 years to have an 80% completion percentage. Ugly ducks, okay?
Yeah, and then when you say lesser competition, that's Oregon they're playing. That's supposed to be a game, I thought.
It was kind of not even close to a game. No, not even close. And then number 2 in the headlines was Ohio State. To me, do not give up on these guys. They're still one of the top 4 teams in the country. Defensively, they held them to 0 points and 72 total yards in the second half. C.J. Stroud, 8 of 9 completions when they needed to be on. They were on in that fourth quarter. And then let's go to the Irish side of things, because I'm not counting them out of the college football playoff race either, guys. I think Marcus Freeman deserves a lot of credit. I was in that stadium. LeBron James was there. 106,000 people. They go in there, and they did what they did defensively and had the lead in the first half. Are you kidding me? We're going to keep talking about those guys if they learn to finish these games.
Well, so when I made this point last week, Paul, and again, like most geniuses, I'm usually not fully appreciated until after my time, but this time I had it right immediately. There was such a thing as a moral victory for the Irish on Saturday night, and I thought they got it. What did you think?
I think they came close to it. I mean, Greeny, they did the most important thing apparently at Notre Dame these days, cover the spread. I mean, forget trying to win a game, forget trying to win a national championship, wake up the echoes and all that. They covered. Greeny, they played well. And I'm with Heather. I'm very impressed with Marcus Freeman. I think their climb to the national championship or the Final Four is pretty steep, about like trying to climb Mount Everest on a snowy day. However, there is a chance right now that had they been blown out, there wouldn't have been. And they have the schedule. They have Clemson and they have USC, which suddenly is everyone's darling after one win over a nobody.
Over Rice. So let's get into this for a second here, because if Ohio State's offense, Sacho, winds up being this season what we think it's going to be, which is to say if they do score 50 points a game every week or most weeks after this, then this Notre Dame game, when it's all said and done, I think might wind up looking pretty good for them.
It absolutely will. Ohio State was the number 1 offense last year in points and in total yards. They're going to be most likely the number 1 offense again this year. Notre Dame, that looked like an NFL defense. I mean, they were playing sound football. That's what you do. You talk about Patrick Mahomes, have 2 high safeties. Like they made Ohio State work for every single thing that they got. You saw a change of game plan towards the second half, a lot more running, a lot more stretch plays. And so for me, Notre Dame really came out, yes, they lost, but we're not going to forget about them. They have an opportunity in the middle of the season. We talked about Clemson, North Carolina, and at the end of the season with USC to still make a playoff run.
All right, everybody stay close, because we have a lot more to do on this college opening weekend here, including, Paul, I'm going to throw a couple of thoughts at you, and we'll see if any of them make you want to call me an idiot on this Labor Day morning. We'll do that. But bear in mind, we are 3 days away from the start of the National Football League season, which kicks off on Thursday night with Matthew Stafford, elbows okay, by the way, and the defending Super Bowl champs hosting